Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus, and this is Romesh Srivastava. Please do subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top-notch CHROs. Today, we are going to discuss about the work relationships and how to fix the conflicts with the boss. Actually, I think you are fortunate if you are having the good work relationship with the peers and especially with the boss, because sometimes the conflict with the boss that may be also the career limiting move. To discuss in detail, today we are privileged to have Mr. Sushil Baveja. He is Chief Human Resource Officer at Stainless Steel. Welcome, Mr. Baveja.
Yeah, thanks so much, Romesh. So I represent Jindal Stainless, and it's a pleasure to be connected with your forum and deal with this particular subject.
So, Mr. Baveja, as per your experience, what are the conflicts generally do you see at the workplace?
The conflicts typically that one sees at the workplace is, there is always a possibility of having, a difference of view, a difference of opinion. So, everybody who's at the workplace is working to get the organizational objectives met, ensuring that, everything is done with, with a certain level of efficiency and effectiveness. And we deal with a variety of factors which actually influence the business performance or the outcomes. And these could be people, these could be processes, these could be practices, could be anything actually. And we are all unique individuals in terms of our perspectives, in terms of our thought process, and we always sometimes get a little too obsessed with our views and perspectives, and we start getting a feeling that well, what I'm saying or what I'm thinking or what I'm doing is the correct one. And so if everybody starts thinking like that, then it can cause some kind of a conflict. More mature workplaces where we are able to converge all the thoughts, all the ideas in the larger common interest. So, this is the kind of pattern one does see at the workplace, which can at times, cause some kind of so it initially leads to, difference of opinion, a difference of perspective, and then later on, if people stick to their positions, then it can actually cause, kind of a conflict. It can cause some kind of an acrimony, and sometimes lead to some undesirable situations, can lead to some kind of a derailment of the complete purpose and objective. So that's what actually does happen at the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. You may have the different opinion, you may have the different perspective, and nothing is wrong into this. But how tactfully and respectfully should anyone handle this situation?
It requires a very mature handling of the situation. What is really required is, first of all, one has to actually agree to be open. So, the boss has a certain perspective, the boss has a certain view. It is not necessary that, the employee or the team members have to necessarily, if they have a different opinion, have to necessarily position their perspective right then and there. You should be, one should be patient, one should take time, one should listen to the boss, one should, try to, understand and appreciate that perspective. I may have a different view and opinion on that, but, if one is able to give that space to the boss to give his perspective and view, and if you're able to listen to it, I think half the battle is won. And so if you have to respectfully convince your boss, it is not necessary, that you have to convince your boss right then and there. You can actually take your time. I mean, take time from the boss, say that, I think it's an interesting perspective that you've given to me. I never thought of that. Can you please give me some time to reflect on it? And then, agree to revisit your idea or perspective. And then come back again, a little better prepared with some facts, figures, what makes you convinced of your perspective, and try to come out with a solution which is like a win-win situation where, the boss also feels that, yeah, my perspective has been taken on board. So when the solution or when the answer is taken up with that co-ownership kind of an approach, I think to a large extent the boss does get convinced, and it's a win-win. It's a win-win situation. It's a win-win outcome. So it requires a very mature. It requires a very tactful understanding. It requires a lot of openness, and as I said, you don't have to necessarily disagree or agree right then and there. Take your time and tell the boss that, look, let me come back to you again. And, so that actually is one way of winning over your boss and making him feel that, yeah, this guy does listen to me.
True. But sometimes situation gets worse. And also there's another situation when you feel it's a toxic workplace, your boss is rude for you, is he or she is micromanaging, you're not getting valued at the workplace. So how to handle this situation when you feel that your boss is toxic? That is a very critical situation.
So there can be disagreement. Disagreements can lead to acrimony. It can lead to discord. It can lead to sustained, level of discord. It can occasionally also lead to some kind of a toxicity, which we should be very, very, very watchful about. My view to that is that in this kind of a situation, particularly when the situation is going a little out of hand, there's no point in arguing. One should actually respectfully withdraw from the situation and let the boss calm down. Let the boss calm down. Sometimes people get a little carried away by their thought process. People get a little carried away by their views and opinions. And it's human. It's natural for some people to get a little carried away. So we have to be appreciative, the boss. We need to be appreciative of the fact that sometimes you cannot be able to, put across a perspective in a situation like that. So better is to, respectfully withdraw from the situation and tell the boss that I think I'll come back to you, once you're a little calmer and once you're a little better. But I must also say, if this persists for a long period of time, if that actually becomes the style of the boss, and it is not something which is very, very specific to just that particular day or to that particular subject matter or the situation, if it really gets aggravated, I think in most of the professional organizations, there is a process to deal with it. And, the employee should not hesitate to seek the help of HR or anybody else who's senior in the organization, because sustained toxicity can actually be very, very derailing. It can actually vitiate the entire work ecosystem. And the impact of that is not felt in that just particular function, but it then can get spread. So one has to be very, very watchful. But this is something which has to be done in a very gradual way. It has to be done very, very in a progressive manner. First is respectfully withdrawing from the situation, allowing the boss to calm down. And once he's calmed down, you can come back again and try to have a dialogue or a meeting or a conversation. And many times, bosses themselves admit, actually, sorry, I really blew my top. I mean, I'm sorry about it. Let's have the conversation again. But there could be situations which could actually aggravate. And if they aggravate on a continuous basis, as I said, if they really become toxic, then, yeah, then the employee is free to actually reach out to HR or to anybody else in the organization to see that this matter is dealt with in the most appropriate manner.
Sure. How do you define what is the toxic workplace?
Yeah, so toxic workplaces where there is anger, which involves, let's say, use of inappropriate language, which involves usage of expressions which are unparliamentary. There could be, an element of threat to it. Then I would say that qualifies as a toxic environment. And many times, one does hear such situations that, people get a little too personal about it. And go to any extent of humiliating somebody or showing deep disrespect, use improper expressions and words and unparliamentary language. Well, that's not I would say the DNA of a good professional work environment or a professional ecosystem.
And how does gender relate to conflict? Many times, women said that they're not comfortable reporting to female boss, and that may be vice versa as well. So, what do you think on this?
Well, one has heard about it, but I'm not sure if we really have a very valid evidence or proof or data points to establish that. But one does get to hear of it. So when it's a conflict or when it's a difference of opinion, it can happen with anyone, whether it's a female boss or it's a male boss. And I work with both, and I have colleagues here, who report to a female boss, and I haven't heard of that situation, but it does get discussed sometimes in some forums that females have some kind of a discomfort reporting to a female boss, maybe out of envy, maybe out of some kind of spirit of competition. Could be. There is no scientific data, I would say, to really support this particular view. Because my personal experience has been that, conflict or a difference of opinion can happen irrespective of the gender.
So finally, what is your advice on to have the healthy work relationship with the peers and, of course, with the boss?
If you ask me, when it comes to having a healthy relationship, so typically, the conflicts arise when the environment doesn't have adequate mechanisms of sharing information or, for that matter, communication. So what is extremely important is that we should keep the channels of communication open. There must be a regular connect between the team members and the bosses. It's important for an employee to stay connected with the boss, keep him informed, build a relationship, which is of trust and faith, be factual, be transparent. Honesty is extremely important. No harm, actually, if I made a mistake and if I go and tell my boss that, look, I made a mistake, it gets more appreciated. So don't get defensive. What is important is to stay connected, be an appreciative listener, understand what are the likes and dislikes of the boss, so that you are better prepared in terms of managing or handling the boss. But communication is the key. Communication is something which builds trust. Communication is something which builds understanding, and communication is something which builds respect and appreciation for each other on a regular basis. If we stay connected, I think the challenge of a conflict doesn't really arise. But let me also tell you, in the same breath, that the onus should not always be on the employee, so to say, to build that bridge or to build that relationship with the manager. The manager also actually take a step forward in making sure that my team member is comfortable, and he should also be a lot more accepting of contrarian perspective. We all have a unique perspective. We should learn to actually respect difference of opinion and respect each other's perspectives. It only brings in more variety of views. It only helps you strengthen your decision, and it only helps you in terms of ensuring that the decision or the outcome is complete in every sense of the way. So managers also should be flexible, and they should also be willing to unlearn and build bridges with their team members. And that's what I would actually say to this.
I think we tried to cover the topic, but anything else which is important and we did not discuss here?
Let me tell you something here. So conflicts are not necessarily all the time negative. Okay. So what is conflict? Conflict is all about, we challenging each other's perspectives and thought process. And we should actually sometimes encourage this kind of a challenging of each other's ideas and thought perspectives, because I feel the real best out of you comes when you are really challenged. Sometimes we don't know actually the kind of potential that we have. And when we actually are challenged by somebody, we really, do that extra mile. We actually do that extra stretch to see that, yeah, okay, I have to prove myself a little more. I must actually raise the bar. So, so that way, in that sense, I think it is something very, very useful. It can be a good learning situation. And let me tell you why. The world today is getting more and more, I would say, uncertain. The world today is getting more and more ambiguous. Not everything today is defined. And tomorrow, today things may be structured, tomorrow they may be absolutely absurd, or they could be abstract or absolutely unstructured. So I must learn to deal with all kinds of difficult situations, and nothing better than getting into such kinds of decisions which are challenging ones, where your boss is challenging you or your colleague is actually challenging you. We must learn to actually take some insights out of such conversations, which can only better prepare me for a better tomorrow, actually.
So thank you so much, Mr. Baveja, for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts.
Thank you so much, Romesh. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.